blah 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 blah. Hello everybody and welcome to I'll Tell You What TV for another Formula 1 podcast where we're going to be talking about the Hungarian Grand Prix that took place this weekend. I've got Steve and James with me again as usual. I was going to say Steve is back from his jollies, came back today, so hope you're both well guys. But also Steve, before last week's podcast you gave me and James an idea of how we could try doing something with the podcast, given a comment that Lucas made. Also thank you Lucas for your comments about last week's podcast. We'll see if it's as shit as the previous week now that Steve's back or not. But Steve, would you like to let us know what your idea was that we're going to try tonight?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I think probably the best idea is that Paul takes over from me because he was much better last week. No, but in all honesty, Paul did a great job last week while I was away on holiday. And so, Paul, if you're listening, it'd be great to have you back again at some point. But my idea, after listening to or reading the comments from Lucas, if anybody wants to know, just thought that we were involving quite a lot of other stuff in with the F1 podcast. Well, listening to his comment, and we kind of all agreed that he's right. So the best way to move forward is we're going to split the podcast into two parts. So the first part is going to be just F1. It could be 2 hours long, it could be 3 hours long, it could be half an hour, but I doubt it somehow, because it was quite an eventful race. Once we're done with the F1, we'll have a few minutes break where we'll go off air, but we'll be back for the after show party kind of thing where we'll play a few games, have a bit of a laugh, talk about other random stuff, and probably James's Racing League as well. Yeah. And whatever else comes to mind, and if people are asking us questions about random stuff, then we'll talk random stuff. But we'll try and keep to just F1 for the first portion, and the second portion we'll probably just say everything goes. Yeah, everything goes. Everything goes. So so there's the F1 podcast, and then there's the after show shortly after, which means that James can go for a shit during the break, so we don't have to hear him go for it.
It's usually you that does it.
That's why I was blaming James. No, but yeah, we appreciate any comments, and we do read them all, and any that are relevant, like Lucas's were, we take it on board.
Yeah, definitely do. So we'll see how that goes tonight. So as Steve says, we'll talk F1, then we'll have a break, but we'll go off air, but I will set up another live podcast for us where, as Steve said, anything will go. So the stuff that we'd use, like perhaps the Hando stuff, the games we play, talking movies, Star Wars, games, all that kind of stuff we'll do differently. One thing I will say to you two though guys is obviously we're into the Formula 1 summer break now, so one of the things that we're going to have to do as well is we're going to need to decide if we're going to take a break next week or whether we're going to do something else. Now in the F1 summer break, I can't imagine we're going to be getting a hell of a lot of F1 news, but that may dictate what kind of shows we do over the next couple of weeks, but we'll see how we get on anyway. James hasn't had a chance to say hello yet, so James, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, well, I'm just sort of like, I've come home expecting Vicky to be here, and it's weird, like, she's not here, and I'm like, I don't know where she is, so I've just messaged her saying, where are you? And put a sad picture of Bella looking at her. I had no response, so I'm just like, right, well, done my job, done all washing up, done all hanging my washing out. Now I'm just folding up all the stuff I put out, so this is very Formula 1-esque, you know, yeah. Very precise. So I'm just sat in front room on my own, on my Todd, folding up washing, and as I bend over to do it, I'm usually feeling like I'm going to spill my guts up, but yeah, I'm alright.
Good. Okay, let's crack on there, talking Formula 1. Going to begin with saying, sad news coming out of Formula 1 this week from Ferrari about...
Can I just say, it's not sad news for Kimi Räikkönen, though?
I don't know. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I'm reading your brain, and I can sense an RIP coming on.
There is, yes. You'll have to explain why Kimi Räikkönen might not mind that. In a moment, James. At least let me do the rest in peace bit first. So Sergio Marchionne passed away, unfortunately. Now, something rather weird happened in that there was one day last week where I sort of got up and saw some news that Sergio Marchionne had been replaced as the president of Ferrari. By one bloke, and another guy had taken another part of the job that he does, with him having ill health. And I shared that with Steve and James. 2 hours later, I'm reading the news that he's passed away, and obviously that is sad news. But it was a little bit odd the way the news came out of, he's been replaced, he's actually dead. So go on, James, what was you going to say?
Well, apparently, I think at the beginning of this year, he were putting pressure on Kimi Räikkönen, saying that like he's not good enough for Ferrari and expect him to be replaced at end of year. Now he's keeled over. Like I can see Kimi Räikkönen going, "Oh, you want to give me a contract extension?"
Yeah, you never know. This could be a bit of a cruel world out there, let's put it that way. But either way, sad news about Sergio Marchionne. It'd be interesting to see what Ferrari are going to do, because he was meant to be the guy that came in to turn the fortunes of the company around, really.
I'll just say something on this. Don't you feel that Ferrari could have just given him a week just to see what was going to happen, and if he passed away in that week, then they could have mourned his passing, and then replaced him, rather than replacing him while he's on his deathbed.
Yeah, that's what kind of seems... To me, it seems a little bit odd. I haven't got all the information, so for all I know, he may have turned around to them and said, "Look, I can't do my job, replace me." If that's the situation, okay, fair enough. But if it's Ferrari going, "Well, you're ill, we need someone in charge of the business," I can kind of understand that. It just seemed very odd that it was literally, I saw the news of having been replaced, and then within a few hours it killed over as well. So but yeah, we never do get to know the full stories.
But just imagine you're laid on your deathbed and you're like, "Oh my God, I hope I pull through. Oh, I'm not feeling good. Oh, mate, knock at the door. What?
You're fired.
You've been sacked. You've been sacked.
Yeah.
Fuck it."
I can't be arsed. Fuck this.
Because if that were the case, you could kind of, but as well, you know, like the history of Ferrari and the way they are in terms of Niki Lauda crashes, burns all his face up, gets sent to hospital. Within a couple of hours, the announced his replacement for the next race is this. It's like, have some fucking respect.
Yeah, they're very shrewd, I think is probably the right word there. So yeah,
because at the end of the day, let's say for example, he's on his deathbed and he says, "I don't think I'm going to pull through, guys. You need to find a replacement. I've got this guy as an idea, and I doubt I'm going to come through this." Right? Let's say that happened, right? What would be wrong with Ferrari telling all internal personnel, this is a non-disclosure thing, and if you disclose anything, you're sacked?
Yeah. And
it's pretty much, the big boss is on his deathbed. We've appointed this person as
interim
to take over.
Yeah, they should have done interim.
If any situation happens in the unfortunate event of like somebody keeling over, see this person for meanwhile. You know what I mean? And then all the media don't need to know nothing until the moment of his death. And it needs to then be like a full week, and then at the next race, let's say the next F1 race at Spa, you show the successor.
Yeah.
And this is it, and have a press conference with the successor. That'd have been so much fucking better, but, you know, Ferrari are just a set of money-grabbing bastards.
Well, I've always said this about Ferrari, and that is that once Enzo Ferrari had passed away, there's only one thing at Ferrari that can't be replaced.
The badge.
And there's the badge. It's the car. It's the only thing that can never be replaced at Ferrari. Every member of staff can be replaced, no matter who you are.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, that old mentality of you couldn't tell Ferrari that their car is shit if you want to drive their car. They've sacked a few drivers in the past because they've said the cars are shit.
Yeah, the engine's not powerful enough. Okay, you're out.
Well, when I watched this Enzo Ferrari documentary with him hanging around after World War II, you could kind of understand how his mindset was of constantly being told you're shit, and then ends up going and making his own company and becoming really successful. And he always was. If you ever look at like pictures of Enzo Ferrari, he was very much like Bernie Ecclestone. I think Bernie probably looked at Enzo Ferrari and thought, I need to be like him.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Not show my hand. And I think maybe that culture has bled into the top people at Ferrari. I think if you'd have probably, let's say for example, Ross Brawn still worked at Ferrari, I think he would have probably advised it's probably better not to do this.
Quite possibly. Just a quick question, guys. Is either one of you scratching something?
I'm not.
Sorry, that's my bad.
What was it? Well, it sounds like you've got back from holiday and you've got a million scratch cards to play.
You really want to know?
No.
Okay, I won't tell you then.
Yeah, you don't need to. Okay, going to move on a little bit from Ferrari. Force India. There's been some very interesting news coming out of Force India recently. Over the course of the weekend, Sergio Perez put out a press release saying that he'd been to court to try and save 400 jobs in the Force India race team's company, basically. Possibility of going into administration. A lot of stuff going on, all very messy. Steve, you sent us a link to a video which I did watch and was very interesting. James, did you watch it?
I did, yeah. I watched it before Steve even sent it.
Okay.
But I've noticed that bloke with big beard mentioned at the beginning of the year that he were intending on getting his company into Formula 1.
Yeah, well, just to let everybody know, the video that Steve sent to us, and if possible we might get a link into the description or into the chat, is basically one of the shareholders of a drinks company called Rich Energy. Now, we did talk about these on a podcast a while ago, and we even Googled them at the time. And it was a very interesting website they got. And the interview that he gives was, for me, a very interesting interview. Basically, it's a guy saying, look, there's me and 3 or 4 other billionaires that want to get into Formula 1. We've got the money, we've agreed a price for the team, we're ready to buy it. We were basically on Thursday on our way to sign the contract with Force India, and then when we get there we're told no, you can't sign it because it looks like we're going into administration. On the Friday in court for the administration, Rich Energy offered to put up straight away £30 million to keep the company going, to keep Force India going right now, and it was rejected mainly by most of the creditors. Now it puts Force India in, to be honest, a very messy situation, but it's a situation that could be solved quite easily with common sense. However, Williams, McLaren, and I think there's one other team as well, Toro Rosso maybe.
No, it's Renault.
Renault, that's it, sorry, Renault. They have decided that they are going to basically be, well, some people have described it as disgraceful, others have said they're within the rights to do so, but basically what happens is, if Force India gets taken over by any company, i.e. Rich Energy, then the company owners have changed, which means that Force India would not be entitled, or the new owners would not be entitled to any prize money at the end of the year, because they're not the company that own the car from the start. However, the other teams can agree to allow the new owners to receive the money, but McLaren, Williams and Renault have said, no, we're not going to let you do that. Thoughts, guys?
I'll let James speak first.
Set of cunts.
Yeah, I can understand it from their business point of view, because they're thinking, well, if Force India, basically it's going to take Force India out of the constructors running, which basically promotes all of them into that potential fourth place, which Force India have had for the last couple of years, which could be worth multiple millions of pounds for these other teams. But there's no saying that, apart from Williams, there's no saying that Force India are going to beat them. So it all seems a bit stupid, really, because for Formula One to be a good sport, it needs to be competitive. And when you take one of your... Because basically, if what's going to happen is somebody doesn't end up buying that team because of that ruling, then you're taking one of your competitors away. And what's the point of having a tennis match with nobody on the other end of the court?
It's all about the winning, Steve.
I know, but there's no winning if there's no last place. If everybody, do you know what I mean? Is it a win if you've got no competition?
Schumacher would say so.
Yeah, he would. I mean, it's cruel, right? It really is cruel. But I don't think I can say I can see why some of the other teams would do it, but I can actually picture other teams going, well, you know what, if we don't allow it, it means we earn some extra money. What they perhaps don't realise is that if they screw over Force India now, then when it becomes their turn, they're going to get screwed over in turn. And that's not... I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But I can see this going a little bit deeper, right? Now, you got McLaren, Williams and Renault, who they earn however much from Formula One at the moment. Force India have got themselves into a lot of financial difficulty. But it's Force India that over the last, 4 or 5 years have been pushing the fight of a fairer pay split between the teams. McLaren is one of those teams that doesn't really want the fairer pay split. So I can understand why they might go, well, actually, you know what, Force India, fuck off. We don't want you in here because you're trying to make us earn less money. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. That's just one way that I could view it. Renault to do it is a little bit weird for me. Definitely weird, especially if they're wanting the likes of Ocon to drive their car, unless they see it as, well, if we can screw over Force India, there's more chance of us getting Ocon into our car.
Just another way just to look at something as well, right? I don't know this for certain, and Dave, you might be able to help me, all right? If this had been not a Formula One team, but it had been a football team in a league, and it had been partway through the season, and a team goes into administration and gets bought out.
Yeah. Nothing.
I know in certain situations you can get a 10-point penalty in football for going into administration during a season. Wouldn't it be fairer to give Force India that rather than saying you're not entitled to any of your earnings?
Yeah, well, the problem comes from, okay, for example, Sauber, they were the last team that needed agreement from all the other teams to still receive their money, right, when Alfa Romeo got involved, right? Now, the reason that all of the other teams agreed was because their name didn't change. With Force India, their name will change. And it's that change of name that triggers who can receive the money or not. Now, I don't think legally they'd be able to still be called Force India, right? Their name would have to change. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. They have to change the name because you can't like once administration ends, I don't think you can keep trading under the same name. Or something like that. It's a bit more technical than I'm making it out to be. So yeah, that change of name is what then goes, well, hang on, Force India, they're no longer a company, so we can't pay the prize money that that company earned. So now there's a new company with a new name and now taking over this car. They'll learn from that point. So, but again, it's catch-22, because if Force India are in a financial difficulty, then screwing them over funds is not going to help them anymore. And there's 105 teams have already been in and out of Formula One in recent history, or in history. It's so easy for teams to drop out, and in all fairness, if Force India end up being out of the sport completely, ending up in a manor type situation where, you know what, we can't even get to the next Grand Prix, then Formula One failed.
Well, I watched a different video as well, which I didn't send to you two, and I probably should have done, and it was all to do with Lance Stroll's dad. Right. Now, on last week's podcast, you two and Paul discussed a bit about maybe he's going to buy the team so that they can put Lance Stroll in there. Just to clarify something, James, as well, listen carefully, I've said it before, but you didn't hear me, obviously, because last week you mentioned this. He's no longer involved with Tommy Hilfiger. He sold his shares. That's why he's got so much money.
Ah, right.
Anyway.
Is James still with us?
He is.
Oh, I'm devastated. I wanted a car covered in Tommy Hilfiger. No, I'm never going to get that.
He sold his shares in the business, and that's why he's got so much money. But anyway, this video I was watching was saying why it would be bad for Force India to sell to him, and basically it's exactly the same reason as a bit like with Manor, and also what this particular person has witnessed on this video that I watched with teams in lower formulas, and that is that you've got a rich dad that wants glory for a family member or something like that, so he buys a team. But then the glory doesn't come. What's he going to do? Just leaves, because, well, I'm not going to keep putting money into this team. Yeah. But then where does that leave the team?
Screwed.
So, yeah, in a worse situation than they were before he took over. So the worst thing for Force India to do would be to sell to Lawrence Stroll.
Now, this is the thing. The guy from Rich Energy that was on that interview, I mean, he looks like a Hell's Angel biker, but to be fair, he comes across as knowing his stuff. And given that he said, obviously, that the hierarchy in Formula One have seen that they've got the funds, what I liked was the fact that he said, look, because he was asked, why do you want to invest in Formula One? He said, well, to be honest, if you're someone that's got 100, 200 million, then Formula One is not the place to go and invest.
Yeah.
You'll just lose all your money. He says, but when you've got 4 or 5 billionaires that have recently built a brand that is knocking Red Bull off of the shelves, then we can afford to spend more than the 100, 200 million getting into Formula One and making more of an impact. And I like that. I like the way that it came across.
He's an F1 fan. He's been mad about Formula One since he was a young age. But not only that, he does have this brand which he can use to support and to fund a Formula One team, but also the Formula One team will support his brand in a way, which, like with Red Bull, it has done with Red Bull. So they're using Formula One to promote the brand. They're not using Formula One to try and make money to put in their own back pocket because their son wants to drive the car.
Yeah.
They've got a reason to do it, and it's because they want to put the brand on a car.
Yeah.
And what I liked about this guy was he says, if it's not with Force India, we will be in Formula One.
Yeah.
Even if it's not with Force India, we will be in Formula One. Force India is just one way of us getting into Formula One.
Yeah.
I felt bad in a way for the guy because at the start of the season, he could have been in charge of Force India, and they wouldn't have had all this situation now.
Yeah.
And any points that would have been accrued up to this point would have been their points.
Yeah.
And it would have all been dealt with. And also, like I said, he offered 30 million to prevent it from going into administration to buy the team outright. and it worked out that.
Well, no, it wasn't 30.
Taking...
No, it wasn't 30 million to buy the team outright. It was literally he was stood there in court and said, "Look, I will give you right now £30 million to avoid going into administration and put £30 million up for the team to keep running for now. So if that money needs to go to some creditors, whatever it needs, I can give £30 million right now." And it was turned out that to buy out the team, it's going to be more than £30 million.
Well, the next bit he discussed on that was basically now it's gone into administration, not including the shareholders of Force India, which is Vijay Mallya and a couple other, and including Hype, which is another energy drink, which apparently is one of the creditors. So apart from the shareholders, which are partly creditors, not including them, the money that's owed to other creditors like Sergio Perez and Mercedes and whoever else totals 48 million. So in theory, this is where he was saying, in theory, if I offered the administrator 48 million, that pays off the administrators, but not the shareholders.
Yeah.
But that's the shareholders' problem, not the administrators' problem.
Yeah, the shareholders is above 140 million, I think he said it was.
Yeah, but it's not up to administrators to please the shareholders.
No.
It's up to administrators
to please the creditors.
I
mean, that's one thing that I would say is that if they've got the 48 million to pay, I mean, I'm pretty sure he said that they would have a look at whether it would be viable to pay that 48 million, but they're kind of now in a catch-22 situation as well, because with it going into administration, there is half a chance of them actually buying the team cheaper.
Yes, but also there is the option that somebody else might come in and buy that team when they want to buy it.
Or as he also said, the risk of losing the staff, because if they lose the staff, they're screwed basically.
Yes.
But anyway, so a very messy situation at Force India. James, you got any final thoughts on them and the situation?
I like the little end message saying, if you eventually get ownership, will you keep Sergio Perez? Basically meaning, well, if it weren't for him, it wouldn't have gone into administration, so probably I'll fucking shoot him out the door.
I tell you what, he wouldn't, if I was buying Force India, he would not be one of my drivers.
No, he wouldn't.
But in a way, that's kind of why I want him to buy it, just so I can fuck Sergio Perez off. But on the other hand, I've got a funny feeling, and this might be complete bullshit, but I've got a funny feeling, could it be that, he were on his way to this meeting to basically buy the team? Could it be that Mercedes-Benz were thinking to themselves, is there any kind of legal situation that would put us in a better position to buy the team and make it our junior Formula 1 team?
Well, legally, they're not allowed to.
Well, it's interesting you say that, though, because I was reading a story earlier today, and part of it does say that, let's see, there's a shared concern, so this is to do with like McLaren, Renault and Williams. All three are keen to make a point to Liberty Media and the wider F1 world about the increasing power within the sport of the team alliances centred around Mercedes and Ferrari. There's a shared concern that Force India is being lined up by Mercedes' Toto Wolff to become a Pucker B team, and that will only increase the power base of the sport's two major manufacturers.
Yeah, and it would need the guy from Rich Energy to get in touch with Mercedes and say, let's make this deal work for both of us. That would be great, in my eyes. Well, only because you've got the Alfa Romeo, Sauber, and the Haas doing so well with the Ferrari equipment. It would seem to bring the field closer together if that Force India had more Mercedes parts in it, shall we say.
I think Force India needs a new injection. Let's face it, if these guys have got the money that he's saying they've got and they're willing to spend, a new team, I mean, you could end up with the equivalent of somebody coming in and doing what Red Bull did
Yeah,
And
because that used to be the Stewart, didn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it the Jaguar?
yeah, same
Whatever.
same thing.
Same team.
So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Well, obviously, I don't want people to lose their jobs and stuff like that, apart from maybe Perez. But yeah, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with their messy situation, though. But I mean, to be fair, Williams, they're in an even worse situation with their car. But business-wise, they seem to be doing all right. So it's a weird world, Formula One. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna start off now as we get on to talking about the Hungarian Grand Prix. Gonna start off with how we got on with our predictions. Now, obviously, while Steve was on holiday, I did message him asking him for his predictions, and he did send them to me. So I reckon it's time we have a look at how we got on with those.
Can I just say, I sent them you before you asked for them.
Did you?
Yes, because I listened to the podcast and I knew you were going to ask for them, so I wrote them up and sent them to you.
Alright, fair enough. I didn't get them until after I'd messaged you, but anyway. Okay, so looking at the predictions, James, you've done alright this week. I know you've got at least 1 point. Now, interestingly, Steve said they nearly almost got a clean sweep on the predictions. Personally, I didn't see it that way, unless I've got something a bit wrong here. But anyway, pole position, Steve said it'd be Hamilton, got that right. Me and James went for Vettel, got that wrong. For the winner, Steve went for Hamilton, James went for Hamilton, and so did I. We all get a point for that one. Podium, couple of us were quite close. Steve said Hamilton, Vettel and Bottas. James said Hamilton, Ricciardo, Vettel, and I said Hamilton, Vettel, Max Verstappen. So close, but no cigars. First to crash out, well, unfortunately, nobody did crash out.
But how close was Ericsson to crashing out on the start straight?
Oh,
because he hit Ricciardo.
Yes, he did. It was very close, but he didn't crash out, so you don't get a point for it. James said it'd be Kimi. He didn't. He got on the podium. I said it'd be Bottas, and he came ever so close, but unfortunately he didn't. Okay, the next one was prompted by Paul, which was will Shell crash out? Steve said no, so he gets a point for that because Ferraris didn't crash out. Me and James both said yes, so we don't get a point.
Vettel did ever so well though for us, didn't he?
He did. Now on the self predictions, Steve said that the winner will do a 2-stop, and I'm pretty sure Hamilton only did the 1.
Yeah, like I said, I almost got a clean sweep.
Almost got a clean
so
sweep.
close.
50-50.
Thing is, right, do you know when the second virtual safety car came out, he had enough of a margin for a free pit stop.
Yeah.
And he could have done a free pit stop, which would have covered him if there'd have been a full safety car.
Yeah, but obviously you'd heard what your prediction was. I thought, nah, fuck you, Steve, I'm not doing it. James said a driver will be hurt and will miss a race. That didn't happen.
No.
And I said that at turn 4, Grosjean will have a crash, and that didn't happen either. So this week, Steve scored 3 points. James scored 1 point, and I scored 1 point, which means Steve storms out into the lead on 19 points. James is trailing on 9 points, and I'm not far off Steve on 17 points. However, would you guys like to know how Mr. Doesn't Know Anything About Formula 1 got on with his predictions?
Don't tell me you did better than all of us. Come on, let's have a look. Go on.
Well, James, do you want to know? Are you going to be able to live? Are you going to be able to live this down when you go back to work?
Don't tell me he's bloody got better than me.
Okay. For pole position, he thought it'd be Vettel, and it wasn't, so he doesn't score a point there. For the winner, he said it'd be Hamilton, so he gets a point there. For the podium, he said it'd be Hamilton, Vettel and Heineken, which obviously we worked out was Kimi Raikkonen, which means his podium prediction was Hamilton, Vettel, Raikkonen.
Bloody hell.
Which means he gets 3 points there. For the first to crash out, he said it would be the pink one, Perez, and it wasn't, so no points there. Will Shell crash out? He said no, so he gets another point there. And then just to add insult to injury, on the self-prediction, he put Vettel will have a crash. And he did have a crash with Valtteri Bottas, so he gets another point there, which gives him a total of 6 points on one effort of predictions, and earns...
Hang on. How many Grand Prix are we into this season?
10, 11.
And James has got 9 points.
Yep.
And Paul's now on 6.
6, yep, from one prediction. So yeah, I mean, so James, right? You are now the only person who hasn't got a 100% prediction right on the podiums, and one of the person that has only had one go at it.
Bullshit! It's rigged. I tell you.
What can I say? What can I say? Now, Steve. Oh, it's James sending pictures of attractive women. Meant to be talking F1. Is that Rachel Riley?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Anyway, okay, see, you can tell James is annoyed with the prediction results. He's Googling Rachel Riley bikini pictures. So yeah, that's how we got on with the predictions. So well done to Paul, actually trounced a lot of us. So you don't need to know anything about F1 to be successful in it. Okay, on to then the Hungarian Grand Prix. I'm going to start off with... I don't know if Steve saw qualifying, but for me, qualifying was brilliant. Probably one of the best qualifying sessions we've seen all season.
I got about a 7-minute highlight video footage of it. So I was disappointed when I saw what the conditions were like that I didn't get to see more.
James?
What?
He's googling Rachel. Stop googling Rachel Riley.
Yeah, I'm
qualifying. I said I think it was one of the best qualifying sessions of the season.
Oh, definitely. We're one of them where you just like. But the funniest bit of all of it were Alonso when the guy were going. So we think you might be better just staying out, and he's like. No, I think we need to come back to the garage because we need to just watch the conditions. Because even if you give me a rocket ship, there's no way I'm getting P10.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was completely right, but it just seems to me, no offence, but who the hell's working at McLaren?
Yeah.
The final corner was a fucking lake, and they're going, well, if we put wets on, you might be all right, and it's like. Yeah, but the rest of the circuit is fucking intermediate conditions, so there's no point. I'm going to be going 10 seconds per lap slower. It's like as if they don't have a clue. It's like a generic thing where it goes, slicks, possibly 10 seconds quicker than an intermediate. Wets, possibly 10 seconds slower than an intermediate. You know? So
yeah.
But they were thinking like as if you put a set of wets on in wet conditions, you might go quicker than intermediates.
Yeah, you might go faster. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Maybe it's somebody that's helped Codemasters with the game.
God, maybe. I think one of the things that's added a bit of confusion in there as well is apparently in the previous race at Hockenheim, when Alonso put the intermediate tyres on, the radio call to him was to box, so he pitted, and as he's coming into the pit lane, so he's coming down the pit lane, he says, why we're pitting? As he pulls into his box, they were putting inters on. He's like, no, we want slicks. Too late, put inters on, send him out, 3 laps later, comes back in for slicks. So McLaren didn't give Fernando, or didn't even ask Alonso,
what's your opinion?
Yeah, what's your opinion? Do you want to stay on slicks, or do you want? They just said pulled him in and put inters on, and it was the wrong decision. Now, I would guess. Well, I don't know whether I can't remember if it was before or after that Van Dorn pitted, but Van Dorn was basically told, look, if we'll box you for intermediates, and he says, no, this is slick condition. So he had the ability or the opportunity to say, no, I'm staying out on these tyres. But for whatever reason, they decided to not give Alonso that choice. So I think that confusion wouldn't have helped Alonso's mindset this week when his engineer's now going sort of completely opposite way, going, well, what do you want to do, Fernando? I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll bend over for you if you like.
Yeah, I think another thing for me were, as well, the situation with Danny Ricciardo in qualifying, where we were bombing round on the soft tyre.
Yeah.
And it was quick. Fucking hell, I'm turning into one at Hando boys there, queerly. It was clearly one of them situations where it just wasn't quick enough. And it were bombing round for 8 laps, and I couldn't understand. Yeah, it started raining again, but I couldn't understand why they didn't just straight away on the first lap go, this tyre ain't working, get some ultra softs on it or something.
Yeah.
Because
not only that,
if it's still raining, it's gonna at one point get to a point where it's gonna go intermediate. So straight away on that first lap, they should have gone, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah. I mean,
so did it start off dry and then started raining?
It were gradually spitting in that. I think it were quali 2. It had rained quite bad between quali 1 and 2, and then it had stopped. And when quali 2 started, it were wet, but kind of in between wet and dry. And after about 5 minutes, people going round on slicks, and everybody else had gone ultra soft, and Danny Rick went soft. So 2 compounds harder, and he couldn't get the temperature in the tyre. And then about 5 minutes from the end of the session, it started drizzling.
I do need to stop you. I'm pretty sure he put the soft tyre on in Q1.
Or because didn't he qualify 13th?
He did, but I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that it was in Q1. I think quite a few people started off on the intermediates because it was a bit damp, and eventually, and there may have been one on full wets, and eventually one of the lower teams stuck on a set of slick tyres, and that's when Danny Rick put on the soft tyre, and I think he got through in like P14. Just scraped through, and then it was in Q2 where it was intermediate to begin with, looked like it wasn't going to be too bad, and then got heavier as the session went on. And the reason that Ricciardo didn't improve his qualifying was because the first run on the Inters wasn't a particularly good one. The track, he went out a little bit later. I think he was one of the last to go out, so he had the worst of the conditions, and then when it came to full wet tyres, he had no opportunity to improve.
Right.
So yeah, Red Bull kind of cocked that one up massively for him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, not as bad as what Renault have cocked up for what's it, Max and Verstappen this season.
Well, no, I mean we'll get on to that. I mean, the qualifying session though for me was very exciting. It was very like, oh, what's happening? What's going to happen next? Who's not gonna make it? It was a very exciting qualifying session. The race itself, for me, I approached this race thinking, you know what, it's the Hungaroring. There's not going to be a lot of action because it's the Hungaroring, but I'm okay with that, just because it's that one-off track. A bit like Monaco, you know, you're not going to see lots of action, but it's okay. It's a pretty cool track. It's a challenge. So I didn't mind the fact that there wasn't a shitload of action all the way through the race. So for me, it wasn't the most boring of races. Now I know that James disagrees on that for about 80% of the race.
Yeah, it was just in them moments where it were like Vettel just couldn't get past Bottas. And it was just like, I couldn't believe, like, when he came out of the pits on them ultra softs, I couldn't believe, yeah, obviously it was a slow stop and he should have come out in front of Bottas, but you'd still expect him to be on a set of ultra soft, brand new ultra softs, to be able to get past Bottas on old tyres.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't do it, and then obviously it wasn't until Raikkonen turned up his mirrors that he thought, "Fuck, I better get on with this."
Yeah.
It almost seemed as if he thought, because obviously he was trying to follow him, but obviously his car was overheating and whatever, so he was having to drop off for a bit. And that's like you said, Raikkonen was starting to close in, and he had to do something about it. But it was almost as if, or as well, that he was waiting to that point where he had the biggest margin of difference between his compound and Bottas's compound, where Bottas's tyre had hit the cliff and he could literally just drive past him.
Yeah.
The thing is, he needed to make his move early. He needed to take
to have a go at the win. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And the thing is, we've seen it from Vettel before. Remember China a couple of years ago, where Verstappen's overtaking people left, right, and centre, and then 40 laps later, Vettel goes, "Oh yeah, this is how you overtake into turn 6 here. I've just remembered." That's kind of how I saw it with him this week. Now we might as well talk about the Bottas Vettel and the Bottas Ricciardo incidents. Everybody will have been doing. I know there'll be differences of opinion, maybe not from us guys, but differences of opinion out there of whose fault it was. So Bottas and Vettel, their contact, guys. Your thoughts on that? Who's at fault?
I think you can't determine it until F1 releases the onboard footage with Bottas.
They can't. Apparently, Bottas's vehicle only had a rear-facing camera.
Well,
that's fucking great. Well, well done, Formula 1.
No, it didn't. It wasn't that it only had a rear-facing camera. It's the camera on Bottas's car was facing backwards because that's where Vettel was. So all the footage from Bottas's car was viewing Vettel behind him. And when Vettel made the move, they didn't have time to move the camera. So it's not that it was always facing backwards. It's just
during the move, it was facing backwards.
Yes.
Let's clarify something for a moment. So that particular move was deemed to be a racing incident, and there was no penalties handed out. So that's basically saying that both drivers possibly could have done something more to avoid the situation.
Yep.
And the stewards just let it go as basically it's just like love and war, and it's just basically trying to both the drivers defending and attacking, and they got a bit too close.
I'd say yes, or they thought it was Bottas's fault but didn't need to take any action because it cost Bottas and it didn't cost Vettel.
This is what I don't like though about Formula 1.
Yeah.
Right, and this is why I've said it in the way that I said it. All right, because I wanted to. This is why I want things like this clarifying in Formula 1. If it's Bottas's fault, but they deemed it not worthy of a penalty, say that.
Yeah.
Say that instead of saying no further action required, say Bottas at fault, but no further action required because he's lost time, he's lost position, he's damaged his own car or whatever it may be. Not a racing incident, because racing incident to me sounds like it was all fair, it was good hard battling, but both drivers could have done more or less, or it was equal. But obviously it wasn't equal because Bottas was hindered by it, and I was praying for a bloody puncture on Vettel's car.
It's interesting.
I couldn't believe it was still in. I was thinking, here comes Raikkonen, it's going to be easy now because I bet he's got a puncture. I could not believe he just carried on.
My prediction was for the top three to be Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas, and I was actually thinking that Bottas was going to end up losing that position to Vettel, and then with the contact, I was actually my first thought was shit, Vettel's going to get a penalty, and I'm going to get my prediction wrong. But then also I was like, I hope he's got a penalty because I don't like the driver.
So you think it was Vettel's fault then?
No, you've not asked me that until now, and I didn't say whether it was or not.
I know, that's why I'm asking you.
I think it was a little bit Vettel's fault, and the reason why I say that is he's got a history of turning in too soon in front of a vehicle that is overtaken.
How is it you put it, James, that Mark Webber put it?
He's a cunt.
No.
No, his car finishes at the back of his crash helmet.
Yeah. I suppose the short version would be that, yeah. So, all right then, James, you know that you're not going to see it from Bottas's view, so whose fault do you think it is then?
Personally, I always thought you had to leave the car's width. And even if Vettel was in front, it was still too close to call. Now, if he'd have left the car's width and turned in and Bottas had hit him, it's clearly Bottas's fault. But from looking at it front on, it looks to me as if Vettel turns in for the corner and he's pretty much like, well, you better not be there because I'm turning in anyway.
Mm.
I think even Bottas starts to mount onto grass to try and avoid the collision.
If you are able to watch it again at some point, you will see that Bottas does touch grass with his left front.
Okay, have you seen Vettel's on board of it?
Yes.
Okay, James, have you seen Vettel's on board?
I think I have.
Right,
I think I have, but usually I don't really care about him.
Yeah, well, I watched Anthony Davidson. I rate Anthony Davidson. I know we talked about this before. As a commentator, he is brilliant. As a pundit, he's brilliant. As doing analysis, he's very, very good. So I was watching his view of the incident afterwards, and he was looking at Vettel's on board. Because when I first saw it, I was kind of like, that corner reminds me a lot of turn 5 at Spain, where sometimes people will try and chuck it up the inside when it's really not on. But on this occasion, at first look, I thought, oh, Vettel's just turned in on him. But then when I looked back at it, this is just my opinion, I think that Bottas in that situation should have gone, you know what, I'm not going to make this. I need to back out. Because,
or take the twat out.
Or take him out, yeah. But he needed to be aware that he's on older tyres, they're going to be struggling a bit, he's on the dirty part of the track, it's not going to be very grippy there, and I don't think... I think he braked too late. Now, going from Vettel's on board, you do see Vettel, as he's passing Bottas, he looks in his mirror, then looks forward and then goes for the corner. Now, I personally just think that he's looked in his mirror, seen that he's pulling away from Bottas, seen that he's just about ahead of Bottas, waited a moment and then gone for the corner. Now, on his on board, it doesn't look like he's done much wrong, to be honest. It would be nice to have Bottas as on board, but I do just think that Bottas can be held a little bit accountable for it and probably should have backed out. But again, I couldn't help but think, yeah, well, Vettel does think that his car finishes right behind his helmet, so has he just thought, fuck it, I'm turning in? So...
Well, let me put it this way, right? If Vettel had given 2 car widths to the left of him, by the next corner, who do you think would have been ahead?
Oh, Vettel would have been.
So why didn't he just not give him more room?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, it is a good point. I mean, Go on, James.
I'll skip ahead a few minutes and I'd say the move with Danny Ricciardo were 100% Bottas's fault.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, I was going to get onto that next.
I disagree.
Disagree? You can't disagree with that.
No,
I'll
explain why in a minute, but go on, James.
What I'm going to say is, what I can't understand is, no matter what situation, the way I run my racing league, if you're at fault, you get a penalty. Therefore, it deters you from doing it again in the future.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I think you both have watched the final 2 races of my racing league. I won't get onto it, but it's been fucking amazing racing. Because everybody knows, if I take somebody out, I'm getting a penalty. And I just wish Formula 1 would be a bit more like that. So, like, with Bottas, the situation, the team were going to him, mate, I think you should give the position back because we personally don't think that were right.
Yeah.
And he goes, why?
Yeah. So no, I'm not doing it.
Let me give it you from the other side then, James. The other point of view. He's been asked to give the position back. He never lost the position. All right. So how can he give a position back that he never lost? Because Ricciardo only got up alongside him. So Ricciardo never got ahead of him. So
no, Ricciardo was in front of him going into the corner.
They were side by side going into the corner.
No, Ricciardo, because when they hit, his front wheel went into Ricciardo's side pod, so Ricciardo was in front.
All right, now to me, that's side by side.
The thing is,
didn't hit him up the rear.
The thing is,
they were alongside each other.
The thing is, though, and this has come up previously. Okay, if you're ahead of a car, right? You know the Mickey Mouse chicane at Hungary. If you're ahead of a car heading into that chicane and you cut the chicane, does that mean that you should give up a position if the car behind was close enough to overtake? The answer is yes, because you've kept a position by running off the track. So in this situation, I think it's similar, where Ricciardo was making the move, right? He may have got the move done, he may not have got the move done. But the reason that you didn't get to find out if he could make the move or not was because Bottas wiped him out. Now, was it Bottas's fault? You could say, well, no, it's not his fault that he locked up. Hold on, you're the driver, you're in control of the vehicle. If the vehicle locks up, it's because something that you or that vehicle has done. You are one. Now, he braked a little too late with massive front wing damage on the dirty part of the track. As soon as he locked, I mean, even Christian Horner, while he was watching it, was going, oh, Daniel's going to go around the outside. I hope Bottas doesn't lock up and understeer. I was thinking exactly the same thing. Ricciardo would have been thinking the same thing. Bottas must have been thinking the same thing. Unfortunately, it happened and he hit him. What I couldn't get was in the interviews afterwards, Bottas says, I can't believe he turned in on me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it were very much like one of them situations with Rosberg and Hamilton at Austria.
Exactly.
It was the same kind of thing. Hamilton was technically in front, but because Rosberg were pretty much denying him from turning in, they both crashed. So it's one of them situations. As I always see it as, and this is the way I run my racing league. If you're in front, you dictate the direction, and all you must do is leave a car's width if the car's still alongside you.
Yeah.
So that's the way I run it. And at the point where Ricciardo got in front, he turns in then, but he still leaves way more than the car's width to that apex. They were going way past it.
The racing
probably
line.
Give Bottas about 2 cars width to the apex, and they still hit. So really, if I were Ricciardo, I'd be quite pissed. But on the other hand, if I'd been told by my team, beware, Bottas has massive front wing damage, I'm thinking understeer, go for a switchback.
Yeah.
This is something that when I was sat in the pub watching it on holiday, a couple of blokes next to me with Mercedes shirts on, and I said, this is before Ricciardo went for the move. I said, Ricciardo's got to go for a move up the inside, otherwise there's going to be a crash. I already could see it coming.
Yeah. And
so could Christian Horner. So, but the way I see it though is, like James said with Austria, when Rosberg a couple of seasons ago was just basically drove in a straight line and turned at the last minute to basically block Hamilton from turning in. What's wrong with Bottas wanting to do that?
Bottas wasn't in control of his vehicle, and the reason that is true is because he locked up. Once you've locked up, you are no longer in control of your vehicle. The way that Rosberg did it was he braked late and he just kept driving in a straight line, and as you say, turned in late. What Bottas did was hit the brakes, lock up, understeer wide into Ricciardo. That's the difference. Bottas didn't drive and turn in late. He couldn't turn in.
So was Bottas's penalty a worthy penalty?
What penalty did he get?
10 seconds.
10-second penalty and 2 points on his licence.
I'd say that's fair, that. Well done to stewards. I didn't think he'd got all.
Yeah. Well,
but he basically didn't, because the 10 seconds penalty, he still kept his same position, 5th.
Thing is,
he didn't lose the position.
That's all right, and like you say, in the future, when they've got no front wing, it'll be amazing because the cars will be so close. But at the moment, it's not Bottas's fault that his car's 40 seconds quicker than everybody else in a race.
True. Now, the thing is, we will have a look at front wings, potential 2019 front wings in a little while. I've got some pictures to show on that. We are going to stick to the Hungarian Grand Prix at the moment. I mean, I think everybody could see that crash coming. Even Ricciardo could. That's why he went as wide round the corner as he did. I wouldn't have had a problem with Bottas running him out wide, but the fact that he locked up, I mean, in all fairness, Bottas should have been braking nice and early for that corner. If you got
could have thought, my front wing's damaged, I can clearly tell I've not got the same turning.
Yeah. Or braking ability. Exactly. This is not going to work. And sometimes you have to go, you know what? I'll give it my best, but I've got to make sure I get to the end. And unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if Bottas was fuming at Vettel for turning in on him. I mean, we've all done it. We've all done angry driving at times, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bottas was in that situation. It did just disappoint me that afterwards he did think that Ricciardo had turned in on. I think when he watches that back, he'll go, "Yeah, probably shouldn't have said that." However, I did find it interesting that Toto Wolff said, "Yeah, he's he's the perfect wingman." And when Bottas was asked, he's asked, "Well, Toto Wolff says you're the perfect wingman." He goes, "I'm a bit hurt by wingman."
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, I did hear that, and I heard that Bottas was upset about it, but I think some of it could be lost in translation from what people. I mean, when you got to think about it, you've got Bottas that's from Finland. You've got Austrian Toto Wolff, and then obviously you've got us that are English. Now, to me, a wingman is somebody that just 100% defends you from the rear, from everything that's coming up from behind you, is there all the time, and basically you are 100% a wingman. I don't think Toto Wolff necessarily meant that comment. I think what Toto Wolff meant was, during that race, he did what he needed to do as a wingman.
Yeah.
During that race, and that is different to a Kimi Raikkonen at Ferrari.
This is one of the things that bothers me about a lot of Formula 1 drivers. When I used to go see my counsellor, she basically gives me this triangle thing. It basically said, on the point of each triangle, there were 3 emotions. One of them was
anger. Well, the other one was anger, and the other one was anger.
Yeah, so one of them was anger, right? I think it said, you cannot be any of these 3 things. Number 1, the aggressor, right? Number 2, the victim. Number 3, rushing to help people. So it said, in a way, you kind of, most superheroes, you think, oh, well, they're always rushing to help people. Mm-hmm. But because they're always doing that, that's why they're always fucking mopey, because they're spending too much time rushing around after everybody that they don't take time to take care of their own life.
Yep.
So basically, if you're any one of them things, you kind of need to make a balance and not be any of them. And what I can see there is, number 1, lost in translation. But let's say, for example, Dave, you went to meet. Let's say us 3 were mega famous. You went to media, and they said to you, Dave, what do you think about James? And you went, I think he's a right cunt.
Yeah.
Right? They print it as he's a right cunt, and then they come to me and go, hey, James, Dave's just said you're a right cunt. And the way they've said it is not the way you said it, and I would, but automatically I'm not allowed to be one of them 3 things: the aggressor, the victim, or rushing to help people. Right? So I can't be the victim of I feel hurt by that. I can't be what's a bastard, I'm gonna get him back. You can't be that, and you can't be rushing to help. Don't really come into this scenario. So, really, Bottas's response is, oh, they can think that if he wants, but, I'll have a word with it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a big thing. But the fact that he then goes, I'm quite hurt by that, that makes it a story.
Yeah.
And really, I think a lot of Formula 1 drivers, in a way, Verstappen, it's like as if he's been brought up to say, these 3 emotions are very typical within Formula 1 drivers. You can't do this. And in a way, Verstappen, to say as a young lad, is probably quite smart. Because he can't... Whenever anybody comes at him and goes, do you think you should change your thing? And he just goes, no.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing I will say. He has... As much as we don't like seeing his dad on camera all the time, he has got the advantage of his dad in his ear going, look, you need to play the game.
Yeah.
You need to play the game. Alain Prost knew how to play the game. Mansell knew how to play the game. Senna didn't quite know how to play the game. Michael Schumacher knew how to play the game.
But I think people like Prost probably played the victim.
Yeah.
The victim card of, oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
I think especially Senna and Prost, they probably did play the aggressor and victim a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably created a load of huge drama for the sport, made the sport great. But in terms of, in a modern day Formula One driver, I think they have to go beyond that to a point where, like I know, looking back, obviously Barrichello were treated as a number 2, but he was always the fucking victim.
Yeah.
He never, ever just were like, well, Michael Schumacher's a really good racing driver, and that's why he's winning a lot of championships. I'm good, but he's just and maybe even playing himself down a bit, and really surprising people. You know, like
okay. Here's a question for you then, right? Since you're talking about Ferrari there, during the race, Kimi Raikkonen went for a different strategy to offset Bottas, and Raikkonen was fucking flying. Something's happened to him recently. He's driving better than I've seen him drive for years, and his pace in that race was amazing. He's catching up Vettel, who can't pass Bottas when he's on a set of ultra soft tyres. Kimi Raikkonen's catching up at 1.5, 2 seconds a lap, and I actually wrote this down. I mean, I wrote loads of notes, but I'm not going to go through all of my notes because it would be here for fucking ages. But I did write down a note to myself. I wrote, this should be interesting, but Ferrari won't allow it. And then I wrote, I would love to see Kimi dive bomb Vettel, a sort of fuck you moment. Because as Kimi Raikkonen was catching up to Vettel, I'm thinking, Ferrari, what they need to do here is they need to say to Vettel, they go, Seb, move out of the way, let Kimi go and attack him. Right? When Kimi attacks him, you follow him through. If we have to change the positions afterwards, we'll do it, but let Kimi attack him, because he's got the pace at the minute. But I'm thinking Ferrari won't do that. They just simply...
They're just told, yeah.
They'll just go, Kimi, just hold... why don't you wait there, mate? Everything's fine. We've got a problem with your car. Why don't you turn your engine down? No, fuck off. Tell Kimi to go and attack Bottas. For 2 reasons. One, if there's contact between the two, it doesn't ruin your championship contenders race, right? And 2, if he gets past him, he's going to put Bottas so far out of position that Vettel will pounce on him. And then Kimi can let Vettel through again. And then they can just follow each other to the finish line. That would have been a better PR situation and a better racing situation. But instead, they don't give that order. What happens instead is they let Raikkonen catch up to Vettel, don't give no instruction. Vettel goes, oh shit, I'm going to have to do something now, or everyone's going to think Kimi's better than me on a harder compounder tyre, and ends up making the move that he does.
Which was poor. Yeah, I think basically they may have had a conversation that we didn't hear, and it may have gone something along the lines of, you know, Seb, you've got until Raikkonen is right on your back to pass the car in front of you. Otherwise, we're going to have to ask you to let Raikkonen through. And I think that's when Vettel looked in his mirrors and thought, okay, it's going to have to be this lap, and that's why he ended up doing it.
I mean, how many times this season, last season, have we heard Ferrari go, Kimi, Vettel's on a different strategy to you. Can you let him by, please? It happened in the last race.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to happen the other way around.
It doesn't. Exactly.
And this is one of the reasons why I thought at this race in Hungary, the winner would possibly be doing a 2-stop strategy, because if you get the overtakes done, a 2-stop strategy is the faster strategy.
Yeah. As
Raikkonen showed.
Well, it didn't show it compared to Hamilton, but
but he was held up a lot though.
Yeah, he was. I mean,
his teammate.
Your thoughts on all that, James?
Yeah, I think obviously because Bottas had pitted so early, automatically, if you were to come out behind Bottas, the 2-stop was the quicker option, such as Raikkonen showed. But the fact, I just cannot believe that Vettel's in a championship fight with Hamilton. And yeah, his car were clearly overheating, because he would, whenever he were going down
for the clear,
start finish straight, he were getting well out of way. And what I didn't understand is how if somebody told me, James, your car's overheating, I wouldn't be thinking, well, what I'll do is I'll stay behind him, get quite close, I'll get DRS, and then on the one overtaking point, I'll pull out and not get any advantage. I'd be thinking, right, I'm gonna, for 3 laps, push this engine to its maximum, and it might overheat and blow up. But if I can get out in front of him, then that means I can get after Hamilton and I can fight for this championship.
And you can cool your engine down.
What do you think to these additional removable blanking plates? Yeah, flaps, blanking plates on the Mercedes, where if it had been Vettel's Ferrari with those, maybe whipping them off would have done the job.
I don't know if James saw it. It sounds like he's trying to squeeze a cork in a bottle at the minute. Interestingly, in qualifying, Hamilton said to his team, said to his engineer, says something's hanging off the side of my car, and I saw it and thought, oh, it looks like someone's gaffer taped up the air vents. Now I know that they gaffer tape up the brake ducts sometimes, and they can open, then they can just rip off bits of duct tape if they need more cooling. I ain't got a problem with that, and thought they'd done the same. When it came to race day and it was pointed out, it did look like it was actually a piece of bodywork covering the air vents. But I like that way of thinking, of going, look, we're 1 and 2, so we're going to have the car for cooling for being 1 and 2. And if we have any problems, and then when we pit, we need to rip it off and cool the car down, no problem, let's do it. I like that way of thinking, so for me, that's not a problem.
I thought it was. It'd be nice to see other cars doing it.
Yeah.
Because what would be wrong? Actually, I don't know whether they'd legally be allowed to do it the opposite way round. Theoretically adding weight to the car during the race.
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if you would be allowed to do that.
And also, I mean, legally, let's say it was a bigger area that was to be removed. I mean, it probably doesn't weigh a lot, but let's say, for instance, they rip them off in the pit stop. That's weight that they're removing from the car that's not going to get weighed at the end.
They do get weighed at the end.
Yeah, but would that additional part that's been removed get weighed at the end?
No, because it's not on the car. When the car finishes and goes into scrutineering, that's when it gets weighed. You can't add to it, you can't take anything off it.
Alright then, another question is, if the car has received damage and the car ends up being underweight, do they take that into consideration, that they've lost part of the car due to damage?
I think they would, yeah. I would expect that they would. I mean, for example, Valtteri Bottas lost 2 end plates, so I think they would take that into consideration. Yeah.
But if somebody crossed the line with no front wing at all, it'd be a bit more weight, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they'd probably go considerably slower for a while as well.
But no, if they lost it on like the last half a lap or something.
Yeah. What do you reckon, James? Do you reckon they take that into consideration?
I'm really, really bad here. I've just been playing with my dog on bed. Yeah.
What was the question?
I don't know what the question was, but yeah. What was the question?
I'm not going to tell you.
Well, I just think it's
if you're not listening, bollocks to you.
No, literally. My dog just came up the steps like a minute before you asked me to answer, and then just jumped up on bed. So I laid on bed and started like rubbing her on head and stuff. And then you went, so what do you think about that, James? I'm like, oh shit.
If a car's received damage during the race,
yeah,
would they take into consideration the weight that's been lost when they weigh the car at the end of the race?
Yeah, I'd just say tough shit, get on with it.
In what way? You did it. In what way? Tough shit, you're underweight, you're out, or
no, tough shit, you're underweight, but you carry on, but you've got damage, so you just, because if, let's say, for example, how long's a pit stop? It's about 2.5 seconds. How long would it take to add weight onto your car?
All right, something you may not have heard then, James, is on the Mercedes, they had some blanking plates over some of where the hot air would emit from behind the radiators.
Yeah.
Right? And they had the option to remove them during a pit stop if they felt they were going to be following a car for a long period of time.
Well, how's that legal?
Right, well, it's the same as when they've got gaffer tape over a brake duct to reduce the flow, but if they need to have more flow during a pit stop, they'll rip the gaffer tape off to have more airflow into the brake duct to create more cooling. So
Yeah,
if
but gaffer tape don't weigh out though, does it?
it must weigh something. It's not as light as air. But these blanking plates on the side, you know, like sometimes you see like these slots, like a shark fin or something. Well, basically they blocked all that up. So if they'd have removed these two blanking plates, shouldn't they be classed as part of the weight of the vehicle at the end of the race? Well, they might have raced actually with an underweight car once they'd removed them.
I think no, they wouldn't have to be taken into account. Damage is different for me, but if you physically take tape off or something like that, no, you weigh the car at the end, and if it's underweight, it's underweight.
Yeah, I personally think if you want to have vents that you want to open because you think your car's overheating, have it so that you've got like the only way I can describe it is just like imagine let's say you get an Allen key, you put it in, you twist it, and you're able to like pull back a slot that's pre-made on a slider. So you put it in, you turn it right, and then you slide the slot back. So the weight of the car's not changing any way. It's just a panel is slotted back, revealing a hole for air to come out.
Interesting concept there. Interesting concept. Okay, let's get talking Red Bull. One of James's favourite teams for the comments that their drivers make at times, and their team owner.
Even Christian Horner, I was in fucking stitches.
Yeah, he wasn't happy, was he?
I just loved it how Crofty went, right, so I think your driver's going to make an overtake. You want to talk us through it? Yeah, great. So yeah, he's just getting in the slipstream now. Ricardo's going to the outside. I hope Bottas don't understeer it. Oh, for fuck's sake!
Oh dear.
It was priceless. I was like, you know, there's commentators' curse. We're going to have to say it's the team boss's curse.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I mean, that wasn't his only bit of brilliant radio-ness. There's a new word, radio-ness, throughout the race. Verstappen with an engine problem. Red Bull's 8th retirement due to engine problems this season. That is way too many for one of the big teams.
How many have Renault themselves had?
Wow.
If I were Ricardo, I'd be getting my ass out of there.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm gonna come on to something else in a minute, but
the ratio of engines, it's clearly an installation problem. You don't see this happening on the works Renault.
Well,
so is it are Renault sabotaging it for Red Bull?
I won't be surprised because Red Bull have treated them like knobheads.
Well, the thing is, Renault or Toro Rosso were basically accusing Renault last year of some form, not necessarily sabotage, but under quality parts. Now, Christian Horner's comments when Verstappen retired, when Crofty talked to him, his comments was, well, it's no surprise, is it? It's a Renault engine. And he even said, well, we'll see what excuses Cyril comes out with afterwards. And Cyril turned around basically and says, yeah, well, they've been slagging us off for 3 years, haven't they? So I'm not surprised they're moaning.
But also, something else that Cyril Beeble said is that the main guys at Renault now have stopped listening to the comments that the Red Bull team are making.
Yeah.
They just don't take them on board anymore.
Yeah.
Good
I mean, the relationship there is absolutely completely broken down.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it had broken down 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's not many teams that will go, yeah, it's an engine problem. It's a hydraulic problem, or it's an NG UK problem, or it's an up my arse problem. They won't normally go, it's an engine problem. McLaren haven't, but Red Bull for the last couple of years, and even this weekend, straight away, yeah, it's an engine problem.
But one of the reasons for it... Sorry, James, just hang on a second. One of the reasons for it is that because they've got the regulations in place now where they're only allowed so many parts of the engine, they can't hide the fact that it was an engine problem.
Yeah.
Because you're going to find out because they're going to get a penalty for replacing part of the engine.
Yeah.
So they might as well say, yeah, it's an engine problem, which I suppose is good in a way because all you used to ever hear was, oh, we had a hydraulic problem. When you could see clearly they've got a big plume of smoke and engine parts flying everywhere.
Yeah. James, go on, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, you know, like at the beginning of this year, I think I can't remember what race it was, and it were a big announcement from Red Bull, we're going to partner up with Honda for next season. No offence, it wasn't a big announcement. Everybody fucking knew it last year because Renault were pretty much like, well, you're not having our engine next year.
Yeah. Well,
so who else are they going to fucking go with? Ferrari would say, fuck off.
Yep.
Mercedes would say,
fuck
well,
off.
we don't want, if we put our engine in our engine in your car, you're going to beat us, so fuck off.
Yeah.
And yeah, Renault had pretty much got to that point where they'd said, you know what, we've had enough, fuck off.
Yeah.
And the only engine that they were left with was a Honda. So the big announcement of we're going with Honda next year, Ricciardo should have already fucking known that.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised.
The thing
Didn't reach because I bet you would think, well, we're going to be left with that Honda. And yeah, Honda had probably did a decent job with Gasly.
Yeah.
But you can't guarantee anything. Yeah, they're going to get it right at some point, but I would seriously, if I were Ricciardo, I'd be looking at McLaren thinking that money's looking good. And yeah, that car's not looking great right now, but when the reduced aero comes in, that could really come good.
Yeah, I think Ricciardo needs to leave Red Bull. The only thing I will say is that it's not going to be the only thing I'm going to say because we're on a fucking talkative podcast. You mentioned about Pierre Gasly, all right? In all fairness, that Honda engine wasn't shit in Hungary. Hartley should have had a better race. Gasly did a brilliant job. Gasly was only beaten by one Renault-powered car. He beat the Renaults.
Can I just throw some out there and put this on record now?
No, fuck off.
All right, Ricciardo to replace Perez.
No.
Mercedes power.
No.
Yeah, but will it be when all this things come through?
I think it will. And just think, right, if you're this rich energy guy, you want a number one driver in that car. You're going to pay a driver to drive it. And if you're Ricciardo, right, you've got McLaren with a Renault engine that you've had problems with, or you've got Force India that have been running in fourth place with a Mercedes engine. You put a quality driver in there and see what happens with a good budget.
I think it's too much of a risk at the moment. In another 5 years, it may completely turn around and they could be the second coming of Red Bull.
Right.
But
if that team though is the sister team to Mercedes, where does he go to after that?
If Mercedes wanted him, it'd have been replaced. Bottas would have been replaced. They clearly don't want him.
Yeah, I'm tempted to kind of agree with that. If Mercedes wanted Ricciardo, it'd be in their car. Mercedes did not hang about with Bottas. They paid off his brand new contract to get him. Now, if they wanted Ricciardo, they'd have no problem doing the same again. So, I mean, it'd be a nice story. I can't see him. I could see him perhaps going to the McLaren, but I suppose Force India are in a better position than McLaren at the moment.
But the power unit is way better.
Yeah, I could see the likes of maybe Kimi Raikkonen doing it. I mean,
guys, I'm just nipping upstairs. I'm back in 2 minutes, so don't ask me any questions.
You know we will. Okay, so we'll take a breather for a minute then.
No, but I mean, on this Ricciardo thing, right? I think it'd be great marketing for this new team that would take over from Force India to have him in the seat for next season.
It would be, but Ricardo wants championship winning car. Is he going to get that at Force India with the new owners?
Is he going to get it at McLaren? Is he going to get it at Red Bull?
At least at McLaren and Red Bull, they've got a history of it. It can be done. At Force India, it's an unknown. It would be a massive risk.
How many more years has Hamilton got?
Well, he's just signed a 2-year, 3-year deal?
I think it's a 2-year deal. So you just asked James a question and he's answered you. Yeah, 2-year deal. So could Ricardo be in Force India under Rich Energy, whatever, for 2 years to replace Hamilton?
I personally think Ricardo right now, his best option is McLaren.
Or will he end up taking Raikkonen's seat?
Well, that's an interesting one, but I can't see that happening. I don't see Vettel going, yeah, you know what, I'm okay with that. I don't see it at all.
Who says
he's a whingy. You know he's a whingy little bitch. He's gonna turn around and go, if he's coming here, I'm going.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't think he'd say that. I think he'd just do everything in his power to. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got it in his contract that he has a say of who his teammate might or might not be. Anyway, we're diverting away from the Hungarian Grand Prix anyway. So, we know Ricciardo's in a potentially difficult situation, but he did have... if it wasn't for Ricciardo in that race, it would have been 10 times more boring than it would have been anyway, because at least with him starting P14, it gave us someone to watch to give us some action throughout the race, except for it was all in one corner with DRS again,
and people were just moving out the way, and I know that it is kind of a two-tier. Yeah, go on, Jake. I
think I will put in throughout the race, fuck's sake, give us a race, come on, fuck's sake. Kevin Magnussen was the only one who put up a fucking fight.
I actually wrote down at that point, this will be a train wreck. Danny Ricciardo, the last of the late breakers against Kevin Mag. I think Ted Kravitz put it brilliantly. You've got the immovable force against the other word that's used. I can't remember what it is now. Irresistible force and the immovable object. But to be fair, those two had a very interesting battle for a lap and a half.
No, he just didn't look in his mirrors. He didn't know he was there.
Quite possibly. What was it you said, James? Kevin Magnussen's gone up a bit in your rating because of he actually put up a fight.
At least he made Formula 1 watchable for a few minutes.
Yeah.
There's just two. Once everybody's got the same front wing and cars can follow through corners, and Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull cannot just disappear into the distance. Imagine Formula 1 where you've got Danny Ricciardo starting at the back, coming through the field slowly, nowhere near as quick, but he's coming through the field because he's in the Red Bull. Every one of them fucking drivers would be running him ragged, defending at every fucking opportunity. But now, there's such an advantage, nobody wants to do it because they're thinking, I'm not racing him, I'm racing everybody else.
Yeah.
Kevin Magnussen was the only one who put up a fight.
Yeah.
Well, you say that. Alonso half-heartedly tried. Made him work for it. So there was nothing he could do. He couldn't keep him behind him.
And that were another thing. Actually, you just mentioned that. I get fucking well tired of double DRS. What do we have here? Double DRS. And Alonso, if you do not have double DRS, you had an extra detection point at turn 1, you would have another cracking battle down towards turn 2 and the battle could have continued. But no, he had DRS. Yeah, Alonso got in the slipstream and pulled out, but by the corner, Ricciardo had gone.
Yeah.
Same with Vettel.
It's in a way it's a difficult one because you can kind of understand the driver's mentality of I'm not fighting him, I'm fighting somebody else, but that shouldn't really be the case. I mean, okay, if you've got two people battling, if you've got a Force India and a Haas, they're going to fight each other. If you've got a Mercedes and a Ferrari, they're going to fight each other. But it's not going to be a battle all the way through. It's going to be follow, and maybe I'll attack in a bit. And hopefully the changes in the sport will affect that massively, because Formula 1 is lacking in genuine action. But I will say again, Hungary is one of those tracks where you're not going to get great overtaking, great racing. It's just the nature of that track, it doesn't happen. But Hungary it's not up there with Monaco, but it's accepted like Monaco is, because it's the nature of the beast. It is a brilliant race track to drive around.
Did you see any of the footage from the Formula 2 race?
I saw a few bits, and there was a lot of overtaking in that race.
I've been watching it thoroughly this season, and that's the one race I didn't watch, and I kind of regret it.
There was overtaking at the chicane.
Yep.
Turn 6 chicane. There was overtaking coming out of the last corner.
Yeah.
I mean, the gap between the leader and the second place at the end of the race was something like 1,000th of a second, which is about, I think it's something stupid, like about 6 inches over the finish line. So I know that the cars are a lot more basic and they're a lot more similar across the field in Formula 2, and maybe that's why Formula 1 need to look at that and they are doing with the front wings. But yeah, it is possible to overtake around there.
Yeah. But
not in Formula 1 cars in the current spec.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, something else I want to mention. James, you know, we've said before about how you reckon the FIA listening to our podcast now and again, because even Steve said this, sometimes we talk about stuff and then it happens on Formula 1. You mentioned...
Just John Todd. He listens.
Okay. Well, have you noticed about the VSC message?
You what? Can you repeat that?
Have you noticed about the virtual safety car message?
Oh, yeah, with it saying increase lap times.
No. The way we've talked about it before, that the way that it was worded makes it sound like you've got to speed up. They have actually changed it to, it now says you need to decrease your speed by 40%.
Yeah, well that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Because straight away, the average Joe, once they see increase anything, they're thinking speed.
Yeah. If it says increase your lap time, I know we understand it as increase your lap time from, say, 1 minute 15 to 1 minute 40. That means you're going to go around slower. Yeah. But if you say increase, that means faster, normally.
Yeah.
Like increase your speed.
Yeah.
Or increase your sex drive. Increase your thruster rate.
But it's one of them where, who on earth would ever say, let's say, for example, we're on a game. I'm trying to not mention games, but let's say we're on a game. Today. And I say, oh, you got to increase your lap time. You wouldn't say that. You'd say, just slow down a bit.
Yeah. You need to back off a bit. You need to lift off a bit. You need to decrease your speed. Something like that.
You never say increase your lap time to anybody.
One thing I will say is, though, I mean, obviously it's stuff that you've noticed, other people, it's been talked about. At least they are going, you know what, we've tried it one way, it didn't quite work, we'll try it a different way, that's not quite worked. Okay, we tried it this way, now this is working. People understand that a bit more. So people like Paul, for example, who was on the podcast with us last week, who doesn't know much about Formula 1, if he was to see that message now, he could understand it straight away. If he'd have seen it previously, it would be confusing, because it's a bit like a double negative without you really knowing it. So at least they have sorted that out. Okay, was there
well done, John Todd.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Was there anything else from the race that sort of springs to your guys' mind that you want to mention, you want to talk about? Is it really?
Sainz qualified really, really well.
Yes, he did.
But what I've noticed is, whenever Sainz qualifies really, really well, Hulkenberg pulls something out of the bag at the start. I think he was about 5 or 6 places back, and by the end of lap 1, we were only like 2 positions behind Sainz.
Yeah. The thing is, Renault have got a problem in that for some reason they can't seem to get the soft tyre to work. So when it came to them doing their pit stops, they didn't really have much of a choice than to go for the medium tyre, which instantly reduces their speed. See, didn't increase their lap time by 40%, it decreased their speed. And not only that, because they pitted quite early, I like what McLaren did. McLaren went, right, everyone's pitting early-ish, let's keep going. And they overcut 2 or 3 people, one of which was Carlos Sainz. I think he was pissed off after the race that a potential P5, P6 position or result was lost, was wasted.
Yeah. Definitely.
In a season where he's a guy that a lot of people are going to be looking at for having him. He is a top quality driver.
Like, if you were at Renault right now and you're in them building years heading towards eventually trying to win a championship, you've got to say this is the best lineup they've had so far. I mean, what did they start out with?
Palmer
and Magnussen. Match made in fucking heaven. And then you had
Palmer
and
Hulkenberg.
Clearly, Hulkenberg made him look like a mug.
Yeah.
And then Palmer had gone. You put Sainz in there, and you've got to say, it's never often you see them both in the same piece of tarmac. Yeah. Usually, one has a good weekend, one has a bad weekend, and it alternates. But when you see them 2 yellow cars at the start of the race in a decent position, you can kind of see Renault probably rubbing their hands thinking, we've got something good here. Now, with Sainz, I'd probably do all I could to hold on to him.
Yeah.
I know that Red Bull said that he's loaned out, but you know that I burnt my toes. You know for the fact... Oh, fuck, I really have... Oh, man. Oh, what a nightmare.
Wait for the fire alarm.
Fuck me. Yeah. Let me sort this out, and I'll be back on that subject in a minute.
You'll hear Vicky in a minute. Don't you set the fire alarm off.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so Science has been doing a good job. But I would be concerned about Renault in that... At a track like Hungary, if you've got the ultra soft tyre, the soft tyre and the medium, and you can't get the soft tyre to work, you've got a major problem, because it was pretty clear from practice that the soft tyre was the best race tyre for the weekend. So if they've got a car that's not working on that soft tyre, they've got a problem. And I'm wondering if McLaren have got a similar problem, because they also went for the medium tyre, even though they ran longer. But they did go soft to medium, actually. I don't think they went... they did. They went soft to medium. So they haven't necessarily got a problem running the soft tyre. But when you've got teams that can go ultra soft, and other teams are having to go soft medium, they've clearly got something wrong with their cars that doesn't allow them to get the benefit of that.
It seems they can't seem to generate the heat in the softer compound.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to mention, actually, sorry, as soon as we're talking about Renault, and harping on a little bit about Red Bull as well. I only got to watch replays of the practice, and I didn't unfortunately get to see FP3, but I did hear Ted Kravitz mention, I think it was during practice session 1, but I didn't hear a follow-up on it, about I think it was Danny Ricciardo's engine. In that at the start of the FP1 session, once it started, the FIA put out their release saying which drivers are using new engines and stuff like that. And part of the conversation got on to Danny Ricciardo's new engine from the previous race, and that he was running the same engine, I think, in this race. Now, what was interesting was that Ted said that although, yes, at the last event, it was stated that Daniel Ricciardo was running a new engine, there are actually questionable doubts about whether it was actually a new engine or a refurbished engine. So a little bit like with Toro Rosso last year saying, well, Renault was supposed to be giving us new parts, but actually what they're doing is giving us refurbished parts. They weren't happy about. So if Red Bull are in a similar situation where Renault are going, yes, hello, we got a brand new engine for you. Okay, they've turned Italian now, but they got a brand new engine for them, but actually it's not brand new. It's actually been used before, and okay, it's been refurbished, but refurbished is not the same as brand new. Don't get me wrong, sometimes refurbished is better than brand new. If you refurbish a 1960s car now, chances are it'll be better than when it was first made. In Formula 1, you don't want a refurbished. I mean, do you want a refurbished tyre? No. Do you want a refurbished chassis? No. You want something brand fucking new. Do you want a refurbished Halo? No, you don't want one that's been twatted with another car before. You want a fucking brand new one.
I want a refurbished toothbrush.
Did you notice Hamilton dropped his helmet when getting out of the car?
No.
Yeah, he put it on kind of like just slightly in ahead of the halo, but off to one side, and it rolled onto the floor. He wasn't happy because he picked it up and he was trying to brush it off. He's obviously scuffed it. But apparently, once you've marked a crash helmet and dropped it like that, it's got to be replaced.
Yeah, you can't use it.
Yep.
Okay, so James, you're back with us then. You sorted your toast out. Science. You were talking about science.
Yeah. It's a bit of a conundrum. There's certain weekends where Hulkenberg does really, really well, and then other weekends where Sainz does really well. And it kind of reminds me of that year, I think it was the final year Hulkenberg were at Force India, where Perez would like step out of Hulkenberg's shadow and actually show what he could do. But in terms of Sainz now, and Sainz when he was at Toro Rosso, and showing how close he was compared to Max Verstappen. Maybe not as mental with the moves, but on the other hand, Sainz can get pretty mental. Does that not put Hulkenberg? Yeah, he's older and yeah, he's tall, but does that not put Hulkenberg in that same kind of category?
Yeah, you'd think it does, but unfortunately, I don't think people are talking about him in the same way because bigger teams have had the opportunity to get him in the past and none of them have gone for him. So I don't think he's even talked about anymore.
Right, that's mental.
Yeah. Especially... Go on.
The only thing Hulkenberg can wait for is for the Renault team to become... Good.
Yeah.
But I think by that point they'll want better drivers, unfortunately.
Maybe, but I think you give Hulkenberg... I mean, you put Hulkenberg in the Mercedes, is he going to do as good a job as Bottas? Yeah, easily. Alright, probably maybe better than what Bottas is doing.
I think Hulkenberg's probably going to have a very similar career to
Rosberg.
Button.
Alright.
Loads and loads of years slogging, and then just gets that 1 year where he gets a car. It shouldn't really be amazing, but it's fucking good and it shows what it can do.
Yeah, quite possibly, definitely. Well, I think you could be right. I mean,
but it'll probably be though that'll be the year that Daniel Ricciardo is his teammate.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Formula 1 is a cruel sport. And Hulkenberg himself, and even Paul di Resta, who big fan of him, we've said before, they've always said that in Formula 1, timing is everything. You have to pick the right time to be available for teams, because if you're not available when they want you, you might not be able to move. So timing can be if the seats aren't there, there's nothing you can do about it. And I think it's been a while since we've seen in Formula 1 a big shake up with the drivers. Okay, we've seen Vettel go from Red Bull to Ferrari. It wasn't a surprise. Hamilton going from McLaren to Mercedes. For many it was a surprise. It wasn't for me. I even said to a few people, look, Hamilton's making a good decision. He'll win nothing for the first season, but then he's going to come out with multiple championships, and that's happened. So they've not been big shake-ups. But if you get a Ricciardo or a Sainz or a Hülkenberg or a Verstappen moving around, the knock-on effect that this could have could be massive. And then when you throw in the likes of a Leclerc, if Leclerc gets in at Ferrari instead of Raikkonen, holy shit, that's going to spice things. Because all of a sudden you're going to have Danny Ricciardo going, right, okay, Vettel definitely don't want to be my teammate, otherwise I would be in that car because I'm better than Leclerc. So then Ricciardo's going to be like, right, okay, do I stick with fucking Honda, have been shit, or do I go to McLaren and drive their orange banana for a while? Fuck it, yeah, let's go and do that. And then Kimi Raikkonen, what is he going to do? Is he going to finish racing completely and go to rallying? Or in the last few races, has he actually shown, you know what, if you don't restrict him, he's fucking just as good as the likes of Alonso, as Hamilton, to be honest, he's been showing us better than Hamilton, as better than Vettel recently.
Got another thing for Jean Todt to think about.
Yeah.
What about, like when you're president of the United States, you get 4 years, and then you can reapply, and then you get another 4 years if you want. What about a maximum 4-year span you can have at a team?
Oh. So
there's no monopoly of drivers. Then every 4 years there'd have to be a big fucking... Or maybe every 3 years there'd have to be a big shake-up.
I think... Okay, it's an interesting concept. It'd be interesting to know what our listeners think about that. I've already got my thoughts on it straight away. I wouldn't be surprised if Steve has. Do you want to know what my thoughts are, James?
You don't like it?
It's an interesting idea. It'd never work. And unfortunately, the reason it'd never work is, number one, the teams would instantly go, right, we cannot tell our drivers anything about our car. Because when they leave, they'll tell their new team about our car.
But also, another way to look at it is, there tends to be 2 or 3 teams that are at the top that have got a chance of winning championships. That limits the top drivers to basically only having 8 years in Formula 1 maximum.
Yeah, but
then they've got to drive for a shit team that they're not going to want to do.
No, but you could still have it where, let's say, for example, you get you've got a maximum 3-year turn. Let's say I'm a new driver. You get a maximum 3-year turn at Mercedes-Benz. I go there and I show I'm fucking amazing, right? You've then got Red Bull and Ferrari that are going, oh, we won't mind him because our driver's going to be up at the end of his term. Right. Tell you what, we'll have him, but you can then, after, let's say, for example, I go to Red Bull, might only want a 2-year contract because I might want to, or a 1-year contract, so I want to get back in that Mercedes. And after you've jumped to a team, you can still jump back.
Yeah. Well, here's something that somebody's mentioned. That they've messaged me rather than the chat, and that is they think it'll cost some of the teams too much money to get the drivers they want. But also,
what I'd say is the money side of things for salaries would be through Liberty Media, not the teams.
That'd be an interesting way of looking at it. But also I'll just let you know that it's Ray that says this. He reckons that once the top 4 drivers all retire, that's when we'll see the biggest shake-up.
Quite possibly, but it depends. I don't think they'll all retire at the same time. Who's going to be retiring soon? Alonso, Raikkonen.
I put one of the top 4 drivers as Verstappen, so he's not going to be.
No, but if you take say the 4 older drivers, right? You've got to say Alonso as being the oldest one that's there, Raikkonen, and then
Hamilton.
Hamilton is not exactly young anymore, and neither's Vettel.
Yeah.
So once those 4 go, that's when, to be honest with you, it opens it up massively for anyone else to win it.
Opens it up massively for other people to. I don't think it'll equate to a shake-up though, because unless they were all to retire and leave at the same time, because it'll be one will retire 1 year, one might retire a couple of years later. It'll be a slow progressive thing. I can't see Mercedes go, you know what, Hamilton, Bottas, you're out, we're bringing in 2 other people. So yeah, I mean the thing is there's younger drivers that are I mean Leclerc has, I mean I felt sorry for Leclerc. Lap 1 is out of the race. I was looking forward to seeing how he got on a difficult, tight, twisty track, and I think he could have had a fabulous result. But
if you think about my proposal to Jean Todt, it'd actually completely eradicate pay drivers, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I think the only way your idea would work is if the cars were basically identical. Because then the problem
let's say you're Ferrari though. Let's say you're Ferrari and your next option would be Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez. You won't be happy, would you?
You'd run one car. You'd run one car.
you would literally be like, for fuck's sake. But by forcing people that are actually good into the sport and promoting the Charles Leclercs of the, it'd get rid of the dead wood in Formula 1.
But it'd also get rid of the talent, because I think, as Steve said, you would end up in a situation where you got some top drivers that haven't got a seat anymore. They're not going to go and race for one of the teams. I mean, you look at Alonso, right? McLaren now, we've seen compared to last year, night and day. They're scoring points, they're doing okay, but P8 ain't no podium, it ain't no win, right? So people look at Alonso now and go, you know what, I don't know how he's managed to keep racing, because he can't be enjoying it, and he isn't enjoying it. So imagine putting him in last year's Sauber, or putting him in this year's Williams. He ain't going to be hanging around for that, is he? He's going to get part way into the season and go, you know what, fuck this, I'm off.
And I'll just say something, but James, hang on as well, right? You take Lance Stroll, Perez, and anyone else. I mean, Perez gets paid, but he brings a lot of sponsorship money in. But that's the thing, Lance Stroll gets paid, but he brings in more sponsorship money. So all the drivers are paid drivers, but some of them bring in more sponsorship than what they get paid, and that's the whole purpose of it. So, like with Lance Stroll, his dad, how many 100 million, whatever, over so many years, right? Well, how would Williams cope not having that 100 million?
Yeah.
They wouldn't.
You know, like, let's say, for example, my ideal Formula 1, you had Ferrari, and who's the shittest team at the moment?
Williams.
The performance gap at, let's say, Silverstone is 1 second difference. You'd still see a fucking amazing performance from Alonso in a shit Williams.
Yeah, you would.
And Stroll in a amazing Ferrari. You'd still see a good battle.
I mean, this is the thing with the sport at the moment. We've mentioned it before. That gap is way too big. And it's smaller this year than it has been for a number of years, and hopefully next year it's going to get smaller again. And it will. I mean, okay, you give someone like Kimi Räikkönen, who may still want to race in Formula 1, and may actually, he might go, you know what, I won't mind racing Williams next year, as long as they're within a second of the leaders, and I may have a chance. Well, that's all I want, a chance. I don't know if that's how he thinks or not, but sometimes that's all people need. But if you move to a Williams now, he's not gonna. He would know, right? There is no chance. I'd be lucky to get to the end of the race. I mean, take Romain Grosjean, for example. One of his comments during this weekend's race was, I mean, okay, some of his radio messages are complete bullshit, but there was one that I loved, which was...
He's another one who plays the fucking victim.
He is, but he came on the radio and he says, these tyres are gone now, we need to change them, or I'm going to crash. Now, not probably what you want to hear from your driver, but... to be fair to him, he's the one driving the car. He's the one that can feel the grip. He's the one that has to take it round the corners at high speed. And if he's getting to a point where he feels that the car's he's gonna crash the car, it's time to change your tyres. Now, I'm sorry, if that doesn't work out to your computer's strategy, then tough shit. Trust the person that's in the car that is either paying you to let him be there, or at least is bringing in money to your team to make the car.
And therefore, if you got rid of the radios and he came into the pit lane and a trigger went, they'd have to fit some tyres. So that's another thing for getting rid of radio, but just hearing the driver.
All right, question for you both then.
Hang on a second. I just wanted to go back just 2 seconds. As well, let's say, for example, the performance difference between the Williams and the top cars, like Ferrari, Mercedes, whatever, was 1 second. You're not going to make say that that's going to be every circuit. But if that was the kind of performance differentiator that we're looking at a shit team, you're going to be a second slower than a good one. But you can, with your talent in the race pace, you can kind of show still what you can do. Let's say, for example, you're Mr. Alonso, right? You've been at Ferrari for 3 seasons, and then you moved to Mercedes for 2 seasons. You didn't really get on with the team. You try to move back to Ferrari, but unfortunately Ferrari had already signed 2 other ones. And he's going up and down to pit lane going, fuck, where am I going to go? Somebody's going to have me. And Williams, the only one who goes, we'll have you. And he goes to Williams, right? Wouldn't you see a fucking amazing performance from Alonso to try and get back into that top seat?
Yeah, you would.
Whereas now, he ain't got the will to live because his car's fucking 5 seconds a lap slower.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, okay, if your car is 1 second a lap slower, by the end of every Grand Prix, you should not get lapped.
Yeah.
But during how many Grand Prix this year, it's only the top 6 have not been lapped.
Yeah. All right, let me ask this question then, because someone's asked me to ask it. All right, so I'm going to have to answer this as well. Do you guys think that Button got out at the right time to keep his name in people's minds as a great driver at no fault of his own due to the car that could not perform? Or do you think he should have stuck it out like Alonso has?
No, I think he made the right choice.
When his dad died, that should have been his final season.
Yeah.
Because he clearly lost the love for the sport.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right there. He probably did go 1 or 2 seasons too long. Not because he wasn't good enough, but for the reason that you've just said.
I mean, he did, as I mentioned last week, he did a brilliant interview with Lewis Hamilton. And he has done some brilliant interviews since he's retired. And, I mean, he still does racing. And he's enjoying it now. But, I mean, I remember seeing an interview where him saying that turning up to Grand Prix weekends was never the same. Because he'd get out of the car and his dad weren't there. So it never was the same. And it was, but he definitely left McLaren at the right time. Lewis Hamilton left McLaren at the right time, to be fair. Jenson Button, unfortunately, joined McLaren just about a year. Well, Jenson Button had 1 year at McLaren where things were all right, and from there the car just went downhill, downhill.
You can't say he joined them 1 year too late because he won the year before.
Yeah.
Because he went there as current champion, and I think it was good for him to go there. And it's a shame that McLaren did not have a competitive car at that point.
Well, they've not had a competitive car for so long. It is ridiculous. I mean, McLaren.
Well, when you work it out, all right. Jenson Button won what, 2008?
Yeah, 2000.
All right.
Or 2009.
Well, what roundabout then? I can't remember. That's 10 years ago.
Are we on about?
Button.
Yeah, 2009 when he had
2009.
Yes.
That's right, because Hamilton won 2008. 2008 was the last time McLaren was good.
Yeah, title winning good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
race winning good, you could say.
well, I mean, they did win races with Hamilton and Button, but
I think the best season McLaren had after 2008 was 2012, and it was the season when Hamilton left. That 2012 car started the season the quickest. They got a front row lockout at Australia, and it finished the season the quickest with a front row lockout at Brazil. Throughout the season, they had some weird dodgy stuff going on.
Was that the year with Button and the bung at Monaco?
No, that was 2010.
Oh, okay.
It all went downhill when Perez joined, didn't it?
yeah, it did.
See, it's weird, isn't it? How my brain asked me to remember somebody's name, I don't have a fucking clue. Remember when a bung was stuck in a McLaren, and I can tell you exactly the year.
Yeah. Okay, there was something else I was going to mention about this weekend's race. There was loads of things just gone through my mind recently, but we talked a little bit about Kimi Räikkönen. Now, I think Danny Ricciardo got driver of the day this weekend.
Yeah.
Personally, I can see why people voted for him. It wasn't my driver of the day. For me, it was Kimi Räikkönen. For two reasons. One, he was clearly the better Ferrari driver. Two, he got through a Grand Prix without a fucking drink. Now, if that had been me, right, I would have been dead. I can't even have a shit without sweating and needing a drink. And that guy...
Me and you, Dave, we did a bit of practice. After 45 minutes, we were shagged.
Was fucked. Honest, literally fucked, and we'll get onto that in a bit, James. Don't you worry. But yeah, when he got...
And when I say practice, that's not with each other, that's on a game.
Yeah. Kimi Räikkönen got out of the car at the end of the race, and I looked at him and thought, you look like you've not done anything. I mean, he wasn't out of breath, he wasn't sweaty, he didn't look dehydrated, he was probably absolutely gasping, but...
And to top it off, he walked over to his son were eating him a white Magnum.
Yeah.
And he didn't even have a lick.
I'm surprised Kimi didn't just take it out of his mouth and go, I need that.
Yeah.
Cool down.
There has been a brilliant picture going around on Facebook today and yesterday, and it's a picture of Kimi Räikkönen. There's a video as well of Kimi Räikkönen's little lad Robin on the podium spraying a bottle of water. And now the picture I've seen is Alonso's podium since like 2012 none. Robin Räikkönen's one. Which I think was pretty good. But I mean, here's a question for you though, guys, right? I mean, Kimi Räikkönen he's been showing a resurgence. I think he's definitely trying to show other teams, look, I'm still available, and you give me the car, I can still win. But if you're Kimi Räikkönen and hearing that radio conversation, but if you're Kimi Räikkönen and you're going, guys, my drink's not working, and they go, oh yeah, we forgot to connect it. I'm sorry, but if you forgot to connect my fucking drink, what else have you forgotten?
Yeah. There are wheel nuts on.
Yeah, exactly. Have I got an engine in my car, or give me? Don't you worry. You open that flap under your feet and you pedal like Fred Flintstone. Fucking, I'm sorry, but
yeah, I'd have probably said, on radio, I'd have probably said, we're gonna have a chat after the race, mate.
Yeah, too fucking right. I mean, not being. I mean, okay, I'm not. Okay, I was going to say I'm a bit old school. I'm not, but in some respects, I mean, we grew up in a time where if you were caught smoking when you were kids, your parents would buy 20 fags and go, right, smoke them all now, because you wouldn't want to smoke afterwards. Admittedly, it didn't work on me, but that's the kind of or like, you're swearing, right, eat this fucking soap. I don't know why people think that'd work, but anyway, it just made your shit come out quicker. Well, yeah, true. But I think I probably, if I was Kimi Räikkönen, I'd be like, right, anyone that's involved in that part of the car, you go, right, couple of exercise bikes in a fucking sauna, no drink, ride it for 2 hours.
Well, I was going to say, make them run round the track, because obviously they're there testing.
Yeah, true.
At the moment, run round the track in the middle of the day, in the hottest heat, actually don't have to run on the track, they can run near the track, and don't have a drink for 2 hours.
With massive jumpers on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, and a crash helmet.
I mean, massive respect to Kimi. Right, there is no. I mean, I'm not the fittest of people anyway, right? But there is no way I could.
Don't put yourself down, Dave.
I said fittest, not fattest. But I've no idea how he did that. I mean, I can't go through a day sitting on a chair without a drink, let alone in the conditions that he was in. Okay.
I have to have a drink just to go and fetch a drink.
That's pretty good, that, Steve. I like that. Okay, on to my final notes about a few of the drivers. Hamilton, for me, it was an easy win, with Bottas holding up Vettel quite nicely. I actually wrote down that I think it was a poor race for Vettel, in a race where he probably should have won. Ferrari fucked up his pit stop, and he just wasn't good enough to pass Bottas earlier on. Kimi Raikkonen did an excellent job. Ricciardo did a great job. Bottas actually did a great job until the contact with Vettel.
As a wingman.
And Gasly, P5, is it P5? Yes.
No, P6. Because it was Bottas 5.
Yeah. P5, 6 in a Honda with only one Renault-engined car beating him. That could be the turning point for Toro Rosso, could be the turning point for Honda, could be a turning point for Red Bull. We'll have to wait and see.
I just put it down to the nature of the circuit.
Maybe, could easily be. But what I will say is, I mean, the most exciting part of the weekend for me was the qualifying was brilliant. Bring me more qualifying sessions like that, because that was exciting. I mean, I went to see parents yesterday, and me and my dad, we rarely talk Formula 1, but he turned around to me and says, how exciting was qualifying on Saturday? It was brilliant. He's not been excited by Formula 1 for years. He gets bored of it now, but he found it exciting, and that's what the rain brought. It's a little bit like people say when they've had wet practice sessions, especially on a Saturday morning, where people don't get to finalise their car for qualifying, or the long runs that they do, nobody knows who's going to be best, and it mixes things up a bit.
Question then on that.
Yep.
Obviously, we all know that when it rains, it mixes it up, because it all comes down to who can handle the car on a wet track. Well, years ago, not that many years ago, but years ago, they brought into the concept of let's have grooved tyres, to give less grip. Why not go with the same tyres that Formula E runs, so that the cars do have less grip? I'm not saying so it kind of simulates the fact that you're driving on water, because obviously you're not. But just imagine if they drove on wet tyres, or really, really hard tyres with grooves in them. Surely that would mix things up a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because give them tyres for qualifying that are shit, and then they've got no data on.
Well, okay, right. To put it in, I can see why you're perhaps saying it. I'm not gonna sit on the fence with this one. What I would say is, that'd be as bad as getting rid of DRS and then bringing DRS back, I think. Because it'd be falsifying it. Give them.
What about getting rid of wheels and making them fly?
Maybe it could work. Could have wipeout. But what I would say is, if they had the groove tyres to give less grip, it ain't going to change the order of things. It would just mean that the front car is a little bit slower, and that back car the gap won't be the same. They'll be even worse. So the gap would just get bigger.
They've got to obviously have other things in there as well, but like less aeros on the front to create less wake with the air and stuff.
What about just qualifying tyres? But for each session 1, it's a completely unmarked qualifying tyre. So the driver has no clue what compound or anything it is. Then you get through to quali 2. Everybody's given another spec of tyre, but that's completely unmarked as well. So the driver has no clue what the tyre is. He just knows it's a Pirelli tyre, and he has no clue. And then you get to quali 3, and once again, a completely new compound, just marked in Pirelli, goes on the car. So Pirelli know which compound it is, but they're just known to the drivers as the qualifying tyres. And then, so for example, there might all be randomly a set of the hardest tyre that they do going into turn 1, and they've all got different braking expectations.
Yeah, I mean,
they've got to learn.
I mean, something that could be interesting for them to do is this. I mean, with the qualifying session that we had, obviously because it was wet qualifying, it meant that all of the drivers were able to choose what tyres they started the race on, and I don't have a problem with that when it's wet. But it did make me think, what would happen if they did that anyway when it was dry? So it doesn't matter what tyres you do your qualifying on, right? You can pick whatever tyre you want when you're on the grid. Now, some people will go, no, that'll be shit, because the people in front will just put a hard tyre on and go really, really long. Well, yeah, they might, but people behind them, if they put a faster tyre on, they could get past them. There is a potential of mixing things up there, and people might go, oh, well, that's faking it a bit more. But you know what? Imagine what it'd be like. You sat there, you're watching the race, you don't know what tyre everybody is on until those tyre blankets come off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should there be multiple tyre manufacturers in Formula 1?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's quite clear now, Pirelli, if they went into a tyre war with Michelin, they'd get fucking their arse handed to them.
But do you think it should be... Yes, you've got to run 2 different compounds of tyre during the race, but let's say, for instance, tyre manufacturer A brings some really super sticky tyre compounds, 2 really super sticky, and the other tyre manufacturer B brings quite hard ones that actually you could very easily do a one-stop on them. That's going to mix it up because the compounds are completely different.
That's an interesting concept, because you could even you could go, right, okay, at this race tyre manufacturer A brings the soft and tyre manufacturer B brings the hards, but at race 2 tyre manufacturer B brings their soft tyre and tyre manufacturer A brings their hard tyre.
I think, what about if
Tyres were made of chocolate?
no, what about if rather than one team being specified one tyre manufacturer, what if each team is specified 3 different tyre manufacturers? So let's say you do your first stint on Pirelli's, you do your second stint on Michelin's, and then you do your third stint on Bridgestone's.
The thing is, there everyone will go, oh, my first stint was absolutely shocking, the tyres just... and then they'll get hammered for it.
Well, yeah, but
why not have it where basically you can have any tyre manufacturer? It's up to the teams to pick their tyre manufacturer. So you could end up with 10 of them.
But if you ended up where everybody knew the Pirellis were shit, but they had to use them, they had to use each tyre manufacturer, that's a guaranteed 2-stop. And if the Pirellis were shit, you know that they're only going to use them for like 1 lap.
Yeah.
But why not do it
It'd
where...
force Pirelli to get better.
But do it where if Ferrari want to bring Bridgestone, let them. If Mercedes want to use Pirelli, let them. If Red Bull want to use Avon, let them.
But like in a situation like what we said earlier, we said, oh, well, unfortunately, Renault are really, really struggling with the soft tyre. Let's say that they were really, really struggling with the Pirelli. Well, it's all right because they can go really long on the Michelin and Bridgestone tyres.
It's an interesting topic, that's for certain. I mean, maybe tyres is something that we can talk about on one of our summer break podcasts. I mean, maybe we can do a bit of research into that and different tyre manufacturers that they've been over the years.
One last thing then on the tyres. Do we all agree that it's good that they're going to the 18-inch rims lower profile?
Yeah.
For 2019, or
I think the teams won't say so, but for the fans' view, yeah.
The drivers, the drivers aren't going to like it.
Well, it'll force the teams to create more mechanical grip, but that'd be at the detriment of aero, which is good for me.
I did just say 2019, but I think it's actually 2021.
Yeah, 21.
But what I understand about it is that because there's less travel in the sidewall, tinkering with your softness of your suspension and how the teams manufacture the suspension will have a bigger difference from one car or from one setup to the next.
Yeah.
Rather than the tyre just absorbing most of it.
It definitely will. I mean, they may look a bit odd, but one thing I will say is, I know when this year's car was brought out, a lot of people didn't like the look of it. But actually, if you look at this year's car compared to the last couple of years' cars, this year's car, even with a halo on, is a nicer look of car. Wider, lower. You look at last year's car, narrower, skinny rear wing. It looks, to me, it looks odd. I prefer the look of the cars this year, even if I said different at the start of the season.
Just something else on the lower profile, just to confirm. The narrowing the front tyres just by a fraction, not as narrow as they were previously before they made them wider.
Yeah.
And the rear wheels, they're keeping them the same width, but they're making them taller to raise the rear ride height.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see what they look like. What I will say about the tyre manufacturers as well, though, is I can kind of understand from a competition point of view, from an FIA point of view, of going, if there's only one tyre manufacturer, it's only one company we need to regulate. If there's multiple tyre manufacturers, we need to regulate multiple tyre manufacturers.
No, just let them do what they want. Don't need to regulate it.
Yeah, you just do what you want. Only thing they need to regulate is the dimensions and the size of the tyre has to be identical across 3 different brands.
And if one of the manufacturers makes the tyres shit, tough shit.
Well, if one manufacturer makes tyres shit, e.g. Pirelli, it's a guaranteed 2 stop because you need to use at least all 3 tyre manufacturers. You know that Pirelli stop, it's going to be a really, really short stint. And then Pirelli are forced to make a better product.
Okay, there we go. Right, okay. Are we done talking about Hungary then?
Yeah, I think we need to get on with the...
Not yet. Well, it depends on what you're going to...
You don't know what I was going to say.
Well, you was either going to say... Wings. Oh, okay, it was the same thing. That's exactly what I was going to mention. Time to have a look at... I was going to say, James, do you want to have a look at some 2019 front wings?
Yeah, go on then, because I saw the picture, but I didn't actually see... I didn't see it going around track.
It's alright, I've not seen it going around. I can send the pictures to you. What I will say is, from what I had heard, or what I had understood, I expected the wings to have a lot less on them than what they have got. Now, I do need to have a bit more of a detailed look at these pictures, but I wouldn't be surprised if you've not seen them. They may come as a little bit of a surprise. So I've got 6 pictures here of Williams, Force India and Red Bull testing out some possible 2019 front wings that they're showing on the podcast now, and I'll just quickly share them with my co-hosts. Okay, so they're sent. Now, what I'll say is Williams' car looks a hell of a lot better with a blue front wing than what they currently use. Now, visually it still looks like there's quite a lot of elements on the front wing if I'm looking at the Williams blue one, because it's quite easy to see. But there is a lot less on there than what is currently on it. I think the main visual bit that's easier to notice straight away is the end plate. It is now just one solid piece. There isn't bits twisting off it or multi-elements to it, and I think that's a good move in the right direction, but I do think I was still expecting it to be even more basic than what it looks.
Yeah, I mean, well, I thought in regulations it said it had to be a maximum of 3 slots.
No, it's 5 elements up, and underneath the wing they've got 2, I don't know the only way I can explain it is 2 underwings which run vertical, not horizontal.
Strakes or veins.
Yeah, strakes, veins. Yeah. So it's 5 tiers, and the teams can alter the angle to their liking of the veins. the end plates. Basically, the wing is as wide as the car, the front axle. So basically how can I explain this in simple terms? At the moment, the reason why they are so intricate is because they're narrow and they're trying to send the vortices of air around and out past the wheels rather than up and over them, because they found that it's more beneficial to send the air out sideways than it is up and over. Whereas by doing this, it forces you to send the air up and over, which creates less dirty air.
And more drag.
More drag, less dirty air, and should be easier to follow someone. Because it's the vortices that come out sideways that creates the dirty air for following somebody through a corner. Because the air swirls sideways off the side of the car.
I mean, I personally, I still think there's too many elements on those wings.
Yeah, I'd have thought get it down to at least 3 or 2.
Yeah. I mean, it's less than what they got now, and it could have a big effect. But to someone that doesn't know Formula One much, you probably wouldn't even really notice the difference. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they work. I think as a viewer, you won't. The only difference you may see is whether people are going to be able to give us more action, more overtaking, more attacking, and stuff like that. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But still, I mean, I saw them and just thought, I still think they're a bit too busy.
Yeah, I mean, if it creates less aero through the corners, I'm all for that, because at least if you can create a situation where the following car has not amazing grip, but even the car in front doesn't have amazing grip either, then that's what I want.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, we've said it before. Well, I'm not going to say the same thing again, but it's like Steve mentioned, the Formula 2 race from this weekend, from what I hear, was phenomenal. I think one of the guys that won, it may have been Formula 3 or Formula 2, I can't remember, one of the guys that won started outside the top 10 and was overtaken on the track. One of them overtook 2 people, I think it was, round turn 2. So, as we said, overtaking can be done, but with the nature of these beasts, it is much more difficult. If you simplify things, it can make things a hell of a lot easier on occasion. It's a little bit like love and marriage. If you've simple marriage, you can have a simple, happy life. If you make it complicated, it could get grumpy quick, and you don't want to wake up grumpy. Okay, I think you two might agree. It might be time for us to take a quick break.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
Right then, folks, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. So in a moment, this live stream will end, and we will move on to our episode 44 after show, where we're not really going to talk about Formula 1 unless we happen to have forgot something that we'll just chat about. So if you want to come and join us for some just general random chat, keep an eye on the channel. So in a few minutes we will come back live. And we'll see how we get on with that. Now, I do know. Should I tell people what might be involved in that part of the show?
You can give a bit of a
hint.
Hint.
Okay, for anyone that's been watching our Hando series that we've been doing over the course of these episodes, 2 weeks ago we did a bit of a Hando piece, and Steve wondered whether we might be able to have a look at the subtitles that YouTube had put to that segment. So we'll have a look at that. That's just one of the things. James mentioned earlier that we did a little bit of practice, and we'll have a little look at that. And also, talking about gaming again, GT Sport, Gran Turismo Sport, have just released an update yesterday with Lewis Hamilton's Formula 1 car on it. I took that car for a bit of a drive last night. I took it for a bit of a drive earlier today. I recorded it, so I've got some footage of that to show in the after show as well. And here. So that is slightly F1 related, but more in the gaming sense.
Just on that very quickly at the end of this show, I'll just mention GT Sport now in the PlayStation Store, just over £10.
Yeah, and
Up
just after
until
that, I go and fucking buy it. A pre-owned from Game for £20.
20 quid. That's why when you mentioned it earlier, Steve, I went, oh, for fuck's sake. Because I knew James would go, I don't fucking believe. The thing is, I've done that before. But anyway, we'll talk about that during the after show. So, folks, if you want to come and join us for a chat in a few moments' time, feel free to do so. But bear in mind, for as far as we're concerned, anything goes in that conversation. So if you're not going to come and join us again, keep an eye out on the YouTube channel for when our next sort of F1 style podcast is, or what we might do over the off season of Formula 1. But if you have been listening, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we shall see you all in a few minutes, hopefully.
Blah 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 blah.